Noah Gragson just pulled off one of the better troll jobs I think I've seen in NASCAR free agent history, and we also have to talk about the next-gen car, because after Cole Custer's test this week, I might have some concerns. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric, and welcome to Out of the Groove. Lots of stuff to talk about. Greg Biffle is coming back to race in like a week, so we've got that to discuss. But before we get to all that, I do want to thank today's sponsor. Today's episode is sponsored by Win Vegas. They've partnered with NASCAR to bring the NASCAR experience to the game for the next 12 weeks running throughout the NASCAR playoffs. Win Vegas is a fun and fast-paced game, and the NASCAR integration adds a new layer of competition that fits perfectly with the league's live racing calendar. This limited time integration features action-packed racing-themed challenges, so you can watch NASCAR and also have fun with these unique in-game events tied to the NASCAR calendar. They have several different game modes, including Car Race, which allows you to race against up to 20 other players around the world. There's the Upgrade Shop, where players have the ability to upgrade their car by collecting spare parts that can only be unlocked playing slots, purchasing, or winning challenges. Each upgrade will make your car faster, increasing your chances of winning. And in addition to the main event, you can enjoy 4 new NASCAR-branded slot games, all based around car racing themes. The integration starts today, August 27th, and will continue throughout the end of the NASCAR season. You can download Win Vegas on the App Store, Google Play, or Windows Store. And fans of Out of the Groove can unlock a special Mega Box upgrade by using the link down in the description. So be sure to take advantage of that special offer and upgrade your car right away. Thanks again to Win Vegas for sponsoring this episode of Out of the Groove. Let's get to the news. So we have a lot of different things to hit on in today's episode. We'll start with some news from earlier this week. Steve Phelps, NASCAR president, has been named to NASCAR's board of directors. He will join current NASCAR CEO Jim France, as well as Lisa France Kennedy, Mike Helton, and Gary Crotty. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm so sorry. This is a big promotion for Steve Phelps. He has been the president of NASCAR since 2018. Now, I personally don't have any firsthand experience working behind the scenes with NASCAR or with or for Steve Phelps. I have talked to Steve Phelps before. He was on the NASCAR Weekly podcast a couple months ago, and I took away from that interview, he's a super open, super honest guy, really generous with his time, and he was willing to answer some tough questions about, some of NASCAR's shortcomings, of course, where NASCAR is going in the future. So I gained a lot of respect for Steve Phelps when we did that interview. And from what I've heard talking to other people in the sport, most, drivers, team owners, crew guys, people who work in the media, all seem to have pretty decent faith in where Steve Phelps is trying to take NASCAR right now. It sounds like he has a very firm understanding that the business has to change, which is why he's been such a proponent of the next gen car and all the things that come with it. So sounds like most people are excited for Steve Phelps. I think he's done a good job since taking over as NASCAR president, but there you have it. Steve Phelps joins the board of directors officially. I honestly don't really know what new powers that gives him. That just, anytime you're on the same level as some Frances, that's a big deal, I think. So good for Steve Phelps. Now today, a former NASCAR Truck Series champion announced he is once again coming back to the NASCAR Truck Series at Darlington next weekend. That's right, Greg Biffle is back. Of course, Greg Biffle returned to the Truck Series last year, driving for Kyle Busch Motorsports at Texas, and if you remember, he got the win. A very triumphant return for Greg Biffle. Well, clearly he has not gotten enough, so he is back. He will be racing at Darlington next Sunday, I believe. I believe their race is Sunday afternoon at like 1 o'clock Eastern, and Cup races after them, so we're back kind of on schedule for NASCAR, but still some things are jumbled up. The trucks are still a weird schedule. Anyway, he's racing in a truck at Darlington, and the way this was teased yesterday by GMS Racing was, I got to give them some props. GMS Racing tweeted this out yesterday. As you can see, it's a pretty basic algebra problem, but all the numbers, 23, 24, 2, all that stuff, that's numbers of GMS trucks. That's a 5-truck team. But if you do the basic arithmetic here, this equation comes out to x equals 69. And if anyone's kept up with dear old Greg Biffle since his retirement from the NASCAR Cup Series a few years ago, you'll know he likes the 69 meme. He is extremely immature. He has the mind of a 12-year-old. But I'm not gonna lie, it is funny, and his commitment to this bit is commendable, I must say. So GMS tweeted that out yesterday, and I'm honestly foolish for not seeing what they were teasing. I knew it equaled 69. I thought GMS Racing was just trying to be funny. I'm like, oh, good one, GMS Racing Twitter account, great job. I didn't see the writing on the wall that actually Greg Biffle is coming back to race. Yeah, Greg Biffle will be in the 24 GMS truck at Darlington. He tweeted this out this morning. Ready for next weekend, 9-6. Oh gosh, seems like a good day for a race. 9-6. I hate it. I hate it so much. I really do. I really do. It's good to have Greg Biffle back. I mean, the story last year of him showing up to Texas after not being in any NASCAR car for a number of years and winning was pretty fun. It was a fun race. So I'm excited to see what he can do at Darlington. I think Darlington's a less forgiving track than Texas, more than likely. And in this case, he's not going to get any practice or qualifying beforehand. So he's really going to be going in without much experience. He's going to have to rely on his Greg Biffle Truck Series instinct, I think, more than anything. And he's in a GMS Chevy truck this time as opposed to a KBM Toyota truck. So maybe a difference in equipment there. I'm not really sure, but we've seen Chase Elliott win in that truck this year in sort of a one-off. So maybe Greg Biffle can add his name to the list. But there you go. The Biff is back once again. Goodness. Now, this episode, of course, is sponsored by Win Vegas, so we have to talk a little bit about Noah Gragson, the Las Vegas kid. We talked about him in yesterday's episode. Yesterday, if you remember, we talked about a tweet he put out yesterday, a very vague but effective tweet. Yesterday, he just tweeted out pen emoji. That's it. Just a pen. Beautiful pen, honestly. It's a very nice pen. It looks good. Well, he took the pen bit a bit further. Of course, after he tweeted that, a lot of people were speculating, like, oh my gosh, does this mean Noah signed a contract for next year? Noah Gragson, of course, is with Junior Motorsports right now. He's having his best season in the Xfinity Series to date so far. He's got a couple of wins. He's sort of an outside championship favorite behind, of course, Briscoe and Cindric, who are kind of running away with it at the moment. But Gragson, he's had a very impressionable season. He's got a couple of wins. He's won at Daytona. That's a big deal. He's gotten in fist fights in the garage area. He's gotten into, on-track incidents with his teammates. So Noah Gragson's been all over the headlines the last few months. And Noah Gragson, of course, yesterday, he just completely embraced the attention he got for tweeting out that pen emoji. Anyway, after tweeting out that emoji and everyone speculating, oh my gosh, is he going to the 48 car next year? That was the most common thought, I think. The 48 car's future is still unknown at this point. There's been so many names linked to it potentially, but nothing's happened yet. So a lot of people are speculating, and I think for fairly good reason, that Noah Gragson was teasing a huge announcement. And Noah Gragson, he embraced it. Last night at like 1 o'clock in the morning, Noah Gragson, kind of out of nowhere, went live on Instagram for about 10 or 12 minutes. And in that Instagram live, Noah Gragson basically just rambled on, and he kept showing everyone the pen, the actual pen that he, I guess, signed this contract with. And it was a simple looking pen. I mean, just a plain ballpoint pen. It said "Smile, y'all" on it, which I thought was a very kind of creepy, but I guess positive and uplifting message. But anyway, for about 10 minutes, Noah Gragson, with hundreds of people watching, of course, he had so many people, myself included, kind of intrigued, hanging at every word he said. And during that 10 or 12 minutes, Noah would, while he would talk about the pen and stuff, he would kind of drop subtle and hints and details about what he actually did with the pen, what he signed. And during that, he mentioned that, oh yeah, I signed a contract that's racing related in the North Carolina area. That's how he said it. And then he kept going on and on. He kept talking about how this was one of the biggest days of his career, how this was a moment he's dreamed of for a long time. Kept dropping hints. He even said at one point that a lot of the people on Twitter who responded to the initial pen tweet were really good guessers. And if you look back at the original tweet, most of the guesses were that he was going to the 48 car. Like, oh, this must be huge. This is going to be a blockbuster announcement. So Noah Gragson really fueling all the different theories last night at 1 o'clock in the morning. Again, I thought it was hilarious. I mean, it was dumb. It was silly, but I thought it was funny. I thought it was very on brand for Noah Gragson. So then today rolls around, this afternoon hits, and an official announcement has been made. Noah Gragson's not going to the 48 car next year. Instead, Noah Gragson will be staying with Junior Motorsports. The team released a video, a little skit this morning that actually tied into the pen tweet and everything. It was a skit with Noah and Kelly Earnhardt. But lo and behold, the big announcement he was teasing, Noah Gragson will be staying with Junior Motorsports through at least next season. Personally, I'm a little relieved. I like Noah Gragson. Was he my top pick for the 48 car? No. I mean, Noah Gragson's a very good, I think very raw talent. He has a lot of raw talent, but he certainly still needs to refine some of that. He makes a lot of aggressive mistakes. It's part of why he's so fun to watch. He makes a lot of aggressive moves that actually work out brilliantly, like we saw at Homestead Miami this year had a lot of those. So he's kind of hit or miss. He's a streaky driver, if there is such a thing. But Noah Gragson, as much as I like him, I wasn't convinced that he was really ready to make the jump into the Cup Series next season. I mean, part of my philosophy, at least, is that you learn by doing, and if he wants to one day be a Cup Series driver, which I think he will be, best to get in now and make it work. There have been rumors recently that Noah Gragson may have landed a new sponsor, and he might be taking them to the 48 car, but at least as of now, none of that has turned out to be true. Gragson, though, will be staying with Junior Motorsports, which I'm very happy for. That's a competitive car. He's going to be able to win races next year, continue to learn, I think, learn a lot, I think, very quickly, and he's going to have a chance to run for an Xfinity Series championship. Noah Gragson, he's younger than I am. I forget that sometimes. I think he's just a few weeks or maybe a few months younger than I am, but either way, I'm excited for Noah Gragson. I still think he has room to grow before he's really ready to step into a big-time Cup Series Series ride. I don't like these young drivers getting into the Cup Series so early because, like William Byron, tore up trucks, tore up Xfinity, but he got into the Cup Series when he was still really young, and we're now almost 3 years into Byron's career, and he doesn't have a win, and I feel like some of the excitement around William Byron has kind of waned because he's gotten into the Cup Series and hasn't done a whole lot. But back in 2016, 2017, there's a lot of excitement for Byron. So right now, I think there's a lot of excitement for Noah Gragson. You know, we still don't really know how far he can go with his career. There's clearly talent there, but it's sort of an unrefined talent that causes some mayhem occasionally. Right now, I think the excitement for Noah Gragson is still very high. I would hate for him to rush himself into the Cup Series, struggle for a couple of years, and have that excitement decline significantly. I don't want to see that if we can avoid it. So I'm glad Noah Gragson's staying in the Xfinity Series in a good team for one more year. It sounds like he and Dale Jr. and Kelly Earnhardt, everyone at Junior Motorsports, sounds like they have a very good relationship. It sounds like this is a great situation for Noah, so I'm happy that he is sticking around in the Xfinity Series for another year. I think they're going to have success, and maybe in a couple years down the line, maybe we see him land at Hendrick Motorsports at some point. Maybe we see him land with another Chevy team, because I think Noah Gragson does have Cup Series in his future, and I hope it happens, and I hope someone takes that chance on, because he has a strong personality. It's a polarizing personality, I think. You know, he's, like I say, he's gotten in fist fights this year, but also a little bit I've talked to him. He's a nice guy. He loves to wow people. He's all about the wow moments in sports, and I think that's something NASCAR's kind of lacking. I think NASCAR has too many guys who are just okay with being mediocre. Honestly, even though I know he's very polarizing, NASCAR needs more Kyle Busches, and I think Noah Gragson, at least as far as how polarizing he is maybe the closest thing in the Xfinity Series we have to Kyle Busch, what he is in the Cup Series. So I'd love to see Gragson move into Cup at some point down the line, but I guess I am a little relieved it's not happening this soon, because I'm afraid that would have eradicated some of the excitement. It eroded the excitement away a little bit from his name if he got into the Cup Series next year and struggled a little bit off the bat. But there you go. The pen just turned out to be a contract extension. I say just. That's still a big deal, because Junior Motorsports, that's a great opportunity. And when we had Noah on the show a few months back, he said then that he didn't know what his plans were for 2021, and he was still racing like he needed a job for next season. So I'm happy that he's sticking around with a good team and got this opportunity. So there you have it. That's what's happening to Noah Gragson. Still don't know who's going to the 48 car. A lot of Cup Series drivers that have had their names linked to it in recent weeks. I think Erik Jones is still the favorite, but at this point, all bets are off, honestly. But this episode's not really about silly season. One last thing I want to hit on in this episode, and we're going to talk about it a little bit right here, but I might maybe next week do a little bit more of maybe a longer video where we dive into this in a little bit more detail. But Cole Custer, Monday and Tuesday, tested the next-gen cars, the first test of the next-gen car since before the pandemic, so it's been a while. But Cole Custer tested the next-gen at Dover, put around 500 miles on the car across Monday and Tuesday, so Cole Custer's got to be wore out after racing Saturday, Sunday, and Monday and Tuesday. Goodness, that's like over 1,100 miles at the Monster Mile in 4 days. That's a lot. But Cole Custer shared some of his thoughts on how the next-gen car felt, and I'll be honest, after hearing some of his lines and some of what he had to say, I'm a little concerned. I'm a little concerned about this race car. Anyway, let's read some of his quotes, and then we'll go from there. In this article from NBC Sports, Custer said the biggest difference in the car for him is the steering and feeling of the tires. And here's a quote from Custer: "Just how they slip and how much you can get away with getting the car loose. It seems like, with how the steering is and how the tires are, you can't really get away. And with how the aero is also, you can't get away with driving the car sideways as much. It's just little differences here and there." Now, I posted that quote to Twitter because parts of it I was a little confused on, and even the response I got on Twitter were kind of mixed. There seemed to be a general consensus that what Cole Custer is saying right there is that the car has kind of an edge to it. There's an edge where if you don't cross that edge, the car's fairly stable. You definitely have a lot of control. There's plenty of driver input to be had. You're not hanging onto it by a thread or anything like that. It's not necessarily just aerodynamically glued to the track the way the 550 horsepower kind of is at cars today in the Cup Series. But the way he makes it sound is that there's a fine line, and if you cross it, even just a little bit, even just slightly, it's easy for the car to get out from under you and spin out and wipe out entirely. So there's a very fine line, is what it sounds like Cole Custer is saying there, and that if you cross that line, the car is not forgiving. One point of emphasis on the next-gen car, at least from some of the prototype photos we've seen, that hasn't been talked about a whole lot, is it seems like the next-gen car is trying to eliminate side force. The current Cup Series cars do have a lot of side force, just because of the way the bodies of the Gen 6 are kind of curved and bent and skewed out and everything. When the current Gen 6 car gets loose, there's side force on the right side of the car that sort of helps helps you steer the car back into place a little bit. I mean, it's inconsistent, but that's also why when two cars get next to each other and that air gets taken away, it's easy for the car in the inside lane to get tight or get loose and slide up and mess up. The next gen car, looking at some of the photos and kind of hearing what Cole Custer and also what some other drivers who've tested the car have said, it sounds like there isn't quite as much side force to lean on, which might be what's leading to that fine line, that edge that you don't want to cross. But Cole Custer's comments there don't necessarily sound bad. It definitely sounds like there's more driver input, and I also think an interesting detail that was noted in that NBC Sports article is that the car that was tested at Dover this week was using 750 horsepower. I don't know, we hadn't really heard what the other Gen 6 tests were using as far as horsepower, but at a 1 mile track, a high banked 1 mile concrete track, 750 horsepower was being used for the next gen car. So take that for what it's worth. But Cole Custer's comments sort of align with what William Byron had to say earlier this year when he tested the car at Auto Club Speedway. Now, if you remember that test, William Byron came away from it, and he was probably the first driver of the several that had tested the car who didn't have, I would say he had mixed, if not mostly negative reviews for the car. Now, William Byron's a young, relatively inexperienced driver, but we actually talked to him earlier today for an episode of the NASCAR Weekly Podcast, which will be live tonight if you're watching this the day this comes out. And we asked Byron again about the next gen car and his test, and he kind of echoed, here we are months later, he still kind of echoed that maybe the conditions weren't great, but he overall didn't have a great experience with the next gen car.
I think the place that I tested it at, we had 40-mile-an-hour winds that day, which did not really help our cause in terms of how the car felt. And plus, that place is really flat. California is really low in grip, really flat, and you add a lot of wind onto that, and it was just a mess for us. But really, I think Cole had a good experience with it from talking to him. Much better one than I did in terms of how the car felt. So I think honestly it'll be a pretty solid base. The biggest questions are when you go to a flat, really fast track like a Pocono or a California. I think there's going to have to be some modifications for those places, in terms of the tire grip. So I think those will be your biggest challenges with that car. But going to a place that's high banked is not going to be a challenge with that car. The banking kind of holds the car in the track, and it should feel pretty normal.
So he makes some excuses, and points out some stuff. Sure, all that is likely true, but if we go back to William Byron after he drove the next gen car at Auto Club, he came back saying the car felt kind of twitchy, and that sometimes the car would just sort of get away from you without you expecting it. It had a lot of unexpected twitchiness, for lack of a better phrase. That's kind of how he explained it earlier this year. And that sort of lines up, in my opinion, with what Cole Custer is saying right here. Cole Custer is saying that, hey, if you stay in that, you don't go over that edge, the car handles about how you'd expect it to, but there is an extremely fine line that you can't really feel as a driver. You just, the moment you slip out of it, the car gets out from under you and it's impossible to drive. So that razor thin line is something that I think NASCAR might need to look at, because that's something that I think we want there to be a little bit more of a gray area there. We want there to be the opportunity for drivers to maybe move closer and closer to that danger zone, but maybe the car's a little out of control, but they're still able to hold on to it. I feel like that's what would produce the best racing, or at least would get the drivers the most involved and let driver talent show through the strongest. But right now, it sounds like the cars are just too unpredictable. And I've read a few interesting threads, a few interesting thoughts from car people, from people who are more, technologically knowledgeable. Why did I say it like that? Anyway, then people that know more about race cars than I do. And I want to make a video probably next week where I, discuss some of those comments a little bit further. But in a nutshell, this is something I'm a little concerned about. The fact that the people who are designing the next gen cars, Dallara was heavily involved in the designing process. I don't think they're necessarily making the cars, but they were involved in designing them. And they're used to, open wheel cars. They make all the cars for IndyCar, and the way those systems work, the way the steering handles in those series is different than the Cup Series. It's different than how a stock car is supposed to feel and handle. So I worry if maybe there's something there. Also, the fact that the tires, the wheels on the next gen car are going to be bigger in diameter than the current Gen 6 cars, as well as the actual width of the tire is different as well. All that is going to translate to a different feeling car. And the thing I've heard now from William Byron, and now we've heard from Cole Custer, is that the steering and the tires are what feel the most different, and that's where my concern comes from. So I don't think the next gen car, obviously we're still over a year away from it actually being in the Cup Series used in competition. We haven't even seen more than one next gen car on track at the same time, so it's still really early in the design process, still early in the overall process. But I will say, after hearing what Byron said earlier this year and now seeing some of Cole Custer's quotes, I'm a little concerned about the next gen car, but we'll talk more about that maybe next week in a video. I'm not sure when the next gen test is, but I'll be curious to see what track they test at and how things may change. But there you have it. That's all I wanted to talk about in this episode. A lot of different things, a lot of different subjects we kind of hit on, but I appreciate you guys watching. Please subscribe if you are new to the channel. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. And of course, a big thank you to my amazing Patreon supporters. Couldn't do this show without their tremendous support, so thank you very much. Again, a big thank you to Win Vegas for sponsoring this episode. Be sure to use that link down in the description to get a free Megabox upgrade for your car in the game. It's exclusive to fans of Out of the Groove, so check that out. Thank you to them for sponsoring this episode. That's all I've got. Again, like I said, we have a live stream tonight. If you're watching this right after it comes out with William Byron, you'll get to see that full interview we did with William Byron. But until then, I will see you all again later this week. We've got the final race of the regular season at Daytona, just a couple nights away. Saturday night, it's gonna be crazy. I'll see you guys then. Lots to talk about, I'm sure, after that one. Have a great rest of your night, everyone. I'll see you soon.